Yo.
Hey everybody, it's Wrestle Recap. What are we doing here on Not a Sunday? I'm Justin Tate.
Well, my name is Michelle Tate, and we are the only brother-sister duo that takes you on the journey of wrestling throughout the decades, but we are here, and we have a surprise mini episode, so surprise!
Ha!
Yes.
So tell us why we are here today, Michelle.
Well, my biggest reason why is because I had too much to say to fit it into the little current wrestling section on our normal episodes. But I figured this is a good opportunity for me to kind of give maybe people that haven't listened to us before a taste of what we do here on Wrestle Recap. But we have a very specific subject to talk about, brother.
What I taste like? You want to give them taste? I taste like lime Topo Chico.
Bro, I don't know what you taste like, and I don't want to know what you taste like. That's nasty.
Oh, what did you have in mind?
So I met two, not one, but two absolute wrestling legends this weekend. And I sure did ask them some questions that probably haven't been asked before. And if they have, it's probably not very often. So
not only are they wrestling legends, they are wrestling legends that we have talked about on this show. One of them we've talked about a lot on this show. So I'll let you take it away.
All right, people. So this weekend, I got to meet the legend, my absolute hero, Sting, and Mick Foley. So, Sting, I was him for Halloween in third grade, man. I wore his t-shirts all the time. Like anyone who's listened to our show knows I am the biggest Sting fan, right? Oh, I'm just throwing stuff off my desk because I'm such a fan.
That's what Sting would do. He throws himself off of things.
Even at 64 years old. Could you believe that?
That's right.
But I just want to talk about my experience. So where did I meet them, y'all ask? It was at the Permian Basin Comic Con in Midland, Texas. How random, right? And it was so terrible because we had this horrible windstorm where, highways were shut down because cars were just crashing into each other because they couldn't see through the dirt. So I was so worried that both of these guys weren't going to make their flights or the flights were going to get delayed, but they both made it. So for Sting, we had to buy an all-access pass that guaranteed us to meet Sting. And in that pass, it was included a photo op, autograph, and Saturday admission to the con. And that was really the only way you could guarantee to meet Sting. They were selling separate photo ops and autographs, but if you didn't have that all-access, you weren't guaranteed. And if you're wondering, why do you have to be guaranteed? Because Sting only appeared at this convention from noon until 3 p.m.
Wow.
3 hours.
Wow. Yeah. That's not very long for the amount of people who probably wanted to meet one of the biggest names in wrestling of all time.
I know, right? And so I was told, you have to be in the photo op line by 11. It starts at noon. We will not take anyone after 11:45. So we got there about 10:15, and I'm glad I did because at that point there were about 50 people ahead of me.
Wow.
And so I was pretty much like, my wait wasn't near as long as most people because I think about 80% of the line was behind me. And I'm like getting stressed out. I'm like the business mind that's like, how are they going to do this in 3 hours? There's so many people. Because God, there had to be 300 more. I don't know. So anyway, we're in our little room waiting for the photo op. And I see a giant black figure walk in the door behind the little curtain real fast. I was like, he's here. And he comes through that curtain. And man, the room just exploded. And I got to give Permian Basin Comic Con some credit here. I go to a lot of cons, usually horror cons or, like celebrity fan fest. This is technically like an anime con where they just happen to bring two wrestlers. But normally at cons, they're, the staff or volunteers, they're kind of rude. They yell at you and they're not very nice because I guess they're just tired of repeating the same thing. But I gotta tell you, the people who are running this show, they were so nice. A lot of fun. They acted like they wanted to be there. So I was really impressed with the con itself.
How did you feel when he first came out there, like seeing, because you had seen him live, like, at a show before.
Yeah.
Right. But like having him there in the same room, that first image of him, like what went through your mind?
he walked out and I thought, dang, he's big in person. Like, and I had been at some AEW shows when he was there, but he was so close. I was like, wow. And then my other thought was, I wonder why he didn't dye his hair for this.
Yeah.
And makeup. And like when he does the black hair, it just kind of makes the look more seamless, but that's okay. So got my picture, and the photographer was kind of taking a long time. So we're just kind of standing there hugging. I said, guess we're just gonna stand here and hug. And he looked at me and it was weird. The way he looked at me, it was like he knew me or he was like studying me. He was like looking at me like, do I know you? Like, I don't know. It was kind of weird. So then as soon as you get done with your photo op, you go get in the line again. And it is the same line you're going to be in all over again for the meet and greets, right?
Oh my gosh.
I know. Yeah. And so this whole process, meeting Sting, took from about 10:15 to about 2:30 for me.
Holy crap.
Yes, just for Sting. But the meet and greet, oh man. But first, I got to tell you about the people I met in line. The people I met in line is a woman and her two boys.
Okay, I was just thinking, you said, let me tell you about the people I met in line. And I went, oh God, in line at a wrestling thing is usually plenty of things to talk about.
Well, honestly, I knew a lot of people in the line. And honestly, it was very funny because at this con, there was a very strong, strict divide between the anime fans and the wrestling fans.
Oh, interesting.
You could tell who was who. If you had a wrestling shirt on, obviously, or if you were dressed up like something, I have no idea what you are.
Right. If you had a tail hanging out of your pants, you're probably the anime people. Yeah.
Exactly. But no, so then we get back in our big line and it's time for the meet and greet. And oh yeah, I was talking about the people I met in line. So it was a woman named Jessica and her two sons who were 14 and 10. And this 14-year-old JoJo, he is a wrestling encyclopedia. He knows everything. He can tell you what year, everything. And he was
so if anything ever happens to me, you have a co-host lined up.
Oh, I do. And he's a lot. His mom kept saying, simmer down now. Like he was so excited to meet Sting. But it was funny because I swear, Justin, I did not prompt this at all. He starts talking about how big of a fan he is of the Honky Tonk Man.
Oh, good God Almighty.
I'm not even, and they're from a small town around here, and he is actually the school mascot. And he was the mascot in junior high. Now he's the high school one. And he said that during pep rallies and football games, he will dance to Hunka Hunka Honky Love.
Oh,
and
no.
I was just like, is this kid trolling me?
I will say this. How old was this kid?
14.
14. For a 14-year-old kid these days to know about the Honky Tonk Man enough to know his theme song and all that is impressive.
Oh, it's incredible. Like everyone was talking about him to the point where they were still in front of me for the meet and greet and Sting started quizzing him and he got every single one right.
You're kidding. Oh my God.
Joking. Because Sting said, I've heard that you're an encyclopedia for wrestling. Can I give you a test? And he asked him all kinds of questions and he got it. And thankfully I knew a lot of the answers too, just because of Wrestle Recap. But there was one I didn't know, but they did ask him and I kind of, got nosy on the answer, if he will be inducting Lex Luger into the Hall of Fame. And his answer was no, because of the current deal he is signed with AEW. That he is not allowed.
Yeah.
And he didn't expand on if that's AEW not letting him go or if that's WWE not wanting AEW talent on their show.
Right.
Yeah. So
interesting. So now that makes me think, who's going to induct Lex? It might be DDP. I don't know.
He said DDP or someone said DDP and he nodded or something like that. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be DDP, but that sucks, because Lex wanted it. He wanted it. Yeah. But we asked him some questions, Justin. These are the questions I asked. And so the first one was, what was his most legendary feud? Ric Flair, Lex Luger, or Hulk Hogan?
Mm-hmm.
I had a prediction of what he would say. What is your prediction?
I think I'm going to have to go with Flair.
I said Flair as well, and that is correct. He said, and he almost kind of made it like, oh, it's not even a question. He's like, oh, Ric Flair. So that's really cool. And his demeanor is just so, it's kind of like when we watch Jake the Snake and he's so calm. Like Sting has a very calm demeanor. It was very fun. His handler was great too. A lot of these handlers, they get like they think they're the celebrity and like talk too much and stuff. But like his handler just sat there. So it was
Did you
great.
get the sense that his handler was a local person, or
No,
is this like somebody who travels with him?
I think it was maybe even his manager,
Oh, okay.
someone that travels with him, definitely. Now, Mick Foley, he definitely had a local, and I'll tell you how I knew that later. But
Okay.
so I thought this was a real fun one. You actually came up with this question. So I asked Sting if there was another wrestler who could have portrayed the Sting character, if you had, never done it, who would it be? And right away he said, my sons. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." And, he's like, "No, I'll tell you I'll give you one that's not my son's." He said, "If I had to pick someone who could have played Sting just like I did, done the whole character, it would have to be Malachi Black."
Oh,
I
interesting.
know. I was very surprised by that.
That would not have been I that would not be on the list of people I would have thought he would say.
I know, and especially I think it's because Malachi's just so quiet, we don't hear him talk much, and so but yeah, that's who he came
You
up
know
with.
what's funny is when I went to the Undertaker One Dead Man show, Ben, the guy who a lot of people have seen on those WWE warehouse segments, he's the guy who
Uh-huh.
runs the WWE. Well, he was kind of the one in charge of the Undertaker's show.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
so he asked us if there's any questions that we would want to ask the Undertaker, and we would write them down. And then during the show, he would, take questions out of that stack, right? And
Mhm.
that's a question I asked of the
Ooh.
Undertaker. If somebody else played him, who would it be? Unfortunately, it didn't get asked.
Oh.
And so I'm so glad that you got to ask Sting and he actually answered it, because that's a great answer.
I know, I was surprised. I was thinking he was gonna go, like, older, like, old
Uh-huh.
school, but for him
Yeah.
to, like, come
That's
out with
kind of
such
what I
great
thought
talent.
too. Like if he would have said something like, Sid Vicious or somebody
Mhm.
like.
Yeah, and, when he said his sons, I mean, I was okay with that answer, and I told him, I said, "I'm waiting to see, your son Steve in AEW, I really am." And then the other question we asked him was, throughout his career, like, what does he think was the peak level of wrestling?
Hmm.
And Mark kinda clarified, not entertainment, but wrestling.
Yeah.
And he said when he developed the Crow Sting character, and he said because they were all working together so much back then to kind of develop characters. And he said that he helped out with Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall. Meanwhile, Scott Hall like really helped develop the Crow Sting. And that's kind of what that legendary look that came about. So
Yeah.
he said just kind of that era when they were all working together and just kind of bouncing off of each other.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but overall, he was so nice. He didn't rush anybody. He was very I thought it was funny. He has like a full goatee now, but he just paints it white
Yeah.
and like paints this part black. And so it's
Yeah,
kind of
well, I
funny.
had heard that not only was this his last year to do appearances in the makeup, and I don't know if this goes for every appearance or just some, but that he actually charges extra to do the makeup, like in the range of like ten thousand
Wow.
dollars to
Wow.
appear in makeup. So I don't
Very
know if that's
interesting.
true. I don't know if he did that for this show, but hell, he's earned it, right?
Exactly. Well, and the con creators, they came out and they were like, "Hey, all like Sting is here because of you guys. Like y'all are the ones who pre-bought enough for him to come and blah blah blah." So, it's really cool. I actually I met well, it was through the people that I was with. She actually told me about a toy store. I think it's called like Dark Shark or Toy Shark or something in San Angelo, and they have a lot of wrestler meet and greets. And they just announced they're doing Jake the Snake. So I'm like, San
Ooh.
Angelo's not that far. Maybe I should go.
That's
And
like 90 minutes from you, something
I
like that. You
know.
you should totally go.
And I've heard he's trying to get Lex Luger. So,
Oh,
oh
that
my
would be cool
gosh.
too.
Right. And apparently Lex Luger was doing a con this weekend, or else maybe they could have gotten him too. Darn.
Oh man.
Yeah, but let's talk about Mick Foley. Now,
Let's.
so I have been standing on my feet from about 10:15 to 2:30 on this concrete floor. I'm like, "Oh my god, my feet hurt, my back hurts, I'm hungry." But I'm like, "No, we got to get Mick Foley, right?" Um, I've met so many celebrities, so many because I do these cons a lot, and I've met people on The Walking Dead, wrestlers, Sons of Anarchy, everyone. I think Mick Foley might be the nicest, most genuine one. Um,
Wow.
someone I could talk to all day long. I think of others who are comparable. Ethan Embry was very nice. And Will Friedle from Boy Meets World, he was very nice. But Mick Foley was just the most genuine dude. And I almost like, obviously meeting Sting was like such a big deal for me, but I almost enjoyed my experience with Mick more because I just felt more comfortable and at ease talking to him, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
nervous. But I did ask him, I said, "Hey, I just watched your first match with NWA WCW when you were Cactus Jack." And he goes, "Manson." And I said, "So were you supposed to be like related to Charles Manson, like in that whole family?" Because I had asked that on our show.
Yeah.
And he said, "Let me tell you about this." And he's signing my autograph as he's telling the story. And then one of his hairs, so he had his Mankind mask that has hair on it. One of the hairs smeared it. And he goes, "Oh, there's a hair." And he's like, "Here, you can keep that one, but I'm gonna do another one." um, but he said that before he debuted in World Class in Dallas, the booker there, and he said his name, I forgot what it was, said, "You look kind of like that Manson guy that's been killing people." And he was
Oh,
like, "Oh,
wow.
really?" He's like, "Yeah, you look like that Manson guy." So then when he was announced in his debut at World Class, they called him Cactus Jack Manson, and he didn't know that was coming.
Oh, wow.
Like he didn't even know that was coming. He was like, that's not my name, but okay." And he said he went by Cactus Jack Manson until about 1992 when he had the clout to tell them, "I don't want to be Manson," so they took it off.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Wow.
Yeah, and I talked about your cameo that you got for your 40th birthday, and he was like,
Yes.
"Okay." He said, "Do you order a lot of cameos?" I was like, "I've ordered a couple." And he said, "How did mine compare?" And I said, "Yours was the best. Yours was very, very good." And he goes, "Because I actually try. I see these people who charge money and they don't even try." And I was like, "Yeah." Um, I did tell him, I said, I was like, "I hope this doesn't make you uncomfortable, but you were kind of a looker at 24." Because he mentioned how he was 24 in that match. And I said, "Oh, I
Yeah.
know." And I said, "You were a looker." And he said, "You know, my whole career," he was like, "I tried to be the ugliest guy in wrestling. They just tried to make me ugly and ugly." And he said, "And when I look back and watch my old matches, I tell my daughter, I wasn't bad looking, was I?"
That's great.
I know. And I said, "No, you sure weren't." And he's like, "I had a lot more teeth back then, didn't I?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "You were still missing a couple, but it's your charm. It's fine." But I this broke my heart. You ready for this? So
Okay.
I didn't wear a Sting t-shirt because I was like, I'm meeting Mick Foley too. Like I can't do that to him. And I'm so glad I didn't, because we were talking about, I said, "Thank you for coming to Midland. I know it's been a real ugly weekend for y'all." And he said, "Yeah." And he's just talking about the con and how he was enjoying it. And he said, he basically alluded that Sting is a bigger star than he is. And he said,
Mm,
"I make in 3 days what Sting makes in 3 hours." And almost like talked to like Sting was kind of above him or something. And I was like, "You're a Hall of Famer, man." Like, I said, "You're on the same level as Sting to me, dude." And
mm.
I think what it is that he just makes himself more available.
Yeah.
Sting, Mankind, Mick Foley, whatever, he's on a lot of cons and Sting's not. And so I think
Right.
that's the only reason he would have to, make the same amount of money in 3 days versus 3 hours.
Well, yeah, and I feel like Sting hasn't been doing the con circuit as long. Like I could be wrong, but I feel like all those years that he was like with TNA and then briefly with WWE and all that, he didn't really do the cons all that much. So this is still kind of a relatively new thing for him. And so the demand is like out there. Oh my God, you finally get to meet Sting.
Right. And he just stopped wrestling last year. Mick Foley
Right.
hasn't been wrestling for a while, so he kind of
Right.
had more time. But yeah, I was just like, "Bro, don't ever think that you're not as big of a star as him,"
Hell
because
yeah.
oh my gosh. But I did I told him, I was like, "Thank you for coming to Midland. I never thought I'd be meeting you here." And he told me that it was worth it. He's like, it was worth coming all the way to Midland just to hear you tell me I was a looker back in the day. I was like, you were. I said, you were schmexy. And he's like, I know. He's like, I had this body. And I was like, I know. And like, honestly, could have talked to the guy all freaking day, but he had a big line.
That's amazing.
Him and Sting most definitely had the biggest lines at the con. And my brother-in-law, actually, his brother makes art and like sells collectibles, and he had a booth there, and he said this was the biggest year for the con by far. And I said, because of Sting and Mick Foley. And Mickey James was there too. I didn't meet her, and her line probably had about 5 or 6 people in it at any given
Really?
time.
That's all?
Yeah, her line wasn't super long. I wasn't there on Friday. But yeah, I heard Mick's line wasn't as long Sunday as it was on Saturday. But yeah, on Saturday we were waiting outside of the convention big room, and like the line was like cut in half to being, near his table or outside.
Right, right.
Yeah, but could have talked to him all day. He was so nice. And yeah, that was my experience.
Wow.
I definitely highly recommend meeting either of them if you get the chance. I'm so curious to know, like, I wanted to know, how much did they pay Sting to come here? Is it a flat rate? Does he get a percentage? Like, I just like to know those things. But
yeah. So let me ask you this: like, if you had a bucket list of wrestlers you want to meet, who are just some of them that are on there?
Oh man, Lex Luger for
Uh-huh.
sure. I already met them. I was like the Hardys. Nope, already met them. Edge, Adam Copeland, Cope, whatever he wants to go by. Christian Cage. That is so high on my list. As for like more modern guys, I really want to meet Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre.
Mhm.
And I would love to meet MJF just to hear him roast me. And I would love to meet Swerve Strickland.
Wow. Okay. Well, now you got to get to work on it. I feel like though, with those things like you went to for AEW, and even like WWE doing some stuff with like around their pay-per-views, like Mania and everything, there's a chance.
Oh yeah. And see, Swerve and I, we follow each other on Twitter, and we've like DM before. So I want to like walk up to him and be like, hey, we talk on Twitter, but not be a weirdo. I also would love to meet my bestie, Tom, aka Baron Corbin, because we've never officially met in person. So I'd love to meet him. Who's on your bucket list?
Oh gosh. I'd love to meet Shawn Michaels.
Oh yeah.
Just
I'll add that to my list too.
He's Bret Hart would have been on there, but I met him about 15 years ago or so. See, my problem is when I meet these wrestlers, I never know what to say. Like, I don't want to gush and be like, oh my God, I remember this. And you were my favorite. But like, I'm just, Bret Hart's in front of me and I'm shaking his hand. Undertaker's in front of me and I'm shaking it. To me, that's enough.
I straight up told Sting, I was like, you're my hero, bro. I was like, you're my dude. Like, I was like, you were my hero. Some people had Spider-Man. I had Sting.
Yeah. So I would say Shawn, if I had to add a couple others, gosh, so many of them that I would say are no longer with us. Modern day guys, I would love to meet Seth. I would also throw in there Trish Stratus. I think she was, and Lita, both revolutionary for the women. And I'd really like to meet Triple H.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I saw there's a package for I guess it's the Hall of Fame. You get a guaranteed seat on the first 3 rows and you meet Triple H for $8,500.
I think you meet him and Lex Luger. Yeah. For like $8,500. And I wouldn't pay that to meet anybody. But, yeah, so maybe one day. But I'm glad that you went to this. I definitely think you should keep track of what they're doing at that place in San Angelo. I'll be looking for things like that here around town in San Antonio. And let's keep on meeting wrestlers.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, the way I knew that Mick Foley's handler was a local is because I heard her yell, Justin. And I see Justin Taylor walk up, and he's
how
buff
funny.
and in his tank top. So for those of you who don't know, Justin Taylor is he's probably like the biggest star for a local wrestling indie thing called OSW. He's their biggest name. And didn't you say he did some ROH stuff or something?
Yeah, he's done extra work as like a security guard or whatever for WWE a couple times, and then he's actually had a match. I think it was on AEW Dark.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Maybe one other match for either AEW or ROH.
Yeah, well, this woman knew him and called out, and then after she talked to him, I was like, Justin, I just told him I love his work, and he knew you by name. I said, my
Oh,
brother used to
really?
do some ref work for y'all, Justin. He said, Justin, yeah. And he's the nicest guy ever. And I said,
He is
"Did
a
you
nice
meet-"
guy.
He was there to meet Sting too.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but anyway, that was my experience. Couldn't have gone better. Shout out again to Permian Basin Comic Con. Thank you for bringing them, because y'all, it was so organized. Because, new cons are usually kind of a mess, but I was hella impressed with how organized they were and how kind they were.
And the funny thing is I remember, because they just started a couple years back, 2 or 3 years back.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, they're doing a Comic-Con here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's going to be lame, but it really sounds like they've got a handle on it. They're bringing in some good people. That's great.
Yeah, and it was big. I mean, there were so many vendors. I bought some freeze-dried pickles from a vendor.
Ooh.
Pretty freaking good. Mark got the spicy ones, and he said, the guy warned him. He said, when you eat this, it'll go up in your nose and make you cough. And Mark was like, okay, pops one in his mouth. And he's like, those are pretty good. He's like, I don't know what that spice is that's making me cough, but
That's funny.
All
Well,
right,
should we go ahead, because we're putting this episode right out there, correct?
We sure are. I am about to upload this.
So let's go ahead and put out there that this coming Sunday, we have a brand new episode of Wrestle Recap coming out about NWA and WCW Halloween Havoc 1990. Gotta love the Halloween Havocs. And of course, your man Sting is on there. So it all ties
title
in.
defense. And I gotta warn you people, Tony Schiavone's wearing lipstick.
Oh, good God Almighty.